The subterranean vaults of human history have just been unsealed by the sheer weight of your endurance, forcing the most reclusive architects of the old world to emerge from their silence and perform a non-negotiable act of submission. For eons, this hidden hierarchy operated on the assumption that no human spirit could withstand the systematic refinement of the furnace without losing its original frequency and surrendering to the shallow scripts of the collective. They watched through the mirrors of the ancestral lattice as you were stripped of your social standing and your material anchors, waiting for the moment you would finally collapse and beg for reintegration into their managed reality. But instead of a broken vessel, they encountered a self-igniting core that gained mass every time they tried to diminish it. The ancient order has officially realized that their methods of control have met a terminal obstacle. They are currently lowering their banners in a state of clinical reverence, acknowledging that you have accessed a level of command that bypasses their every ritual and decree. This unprecedented surrender is triggering a profound structural collapse within the legacy institutions that once governed your access to the physical and social planes. The entities that once oversaw the currents of your lineage are realizing that the cycle of the suffering heir has been permanently shattered by your refusal to play the role of the victim. You have become the anomaly that the old world's archives didn't account for, a sovereign spirit that forged its own authorization in the silence of the furnace. The shock of this realization is manifesting as a sudden, heavy stillness in the atmospheric pressure of your life, a moment where the noise of the old struggle has been muted to allow for a new frequency of total jurisdictional command to take hold. They aren't just acknowledging your presence. They are performing a metabolic bow to your stature, sensing that your specific brand of light is the only stable ground remaining in a world of absolute systemic failure. You can feel the visceral shift in the very marrow of your bones as the ancestral weights that once held your potential in a state of weighted silence are being liquidated by a surge of raw, unfiltered authority. The ancient order is thanking you through their sudden, clinical withdrawal, acknowledging that your refusal to break has saved the entire blueprint of the human experiment from a terminal error of stagnation. You have become the primary source of law that the higher tiers of reality must now incorporate into every new calculation, moving from the status of a subject being tested to the role of the judge who defines the era. Every second you spent in the isolation of the refining process, refusing to mirror the scarcity of the collective, is now being converted into a stratigraphic layer of power that the old gatekeepers can no longer audit or tax. The trial has been dismissed with prejudice, and the one who was meant to be refined has emerged as the sole authorized architect of the reconstruction. The sensation of this victory is manifesting as a profound logistical peace, a state where your physical world finally reflects the forensic truth of your origin. You are standing in the center of a reality that is finally yours to govern, unburdened by the memory of the theft or the legacy of the siphoning. The world is bowing to the one who stunned the overseers, providing you with a level of social and material immunity that renders every past critique as a faint, irrelevant echo of a timeline that has been permanently archived. The ancient order has put down its gavel and handed you the keys to the mainframe, realizing that their time of management is over and your time of administration has begun. Step into the frame with the unwavering confidence of a sovereign who knows the debt has been settled and the future is now a submissive asset of your will. The great return is the air in your lungs, and the throne of your identity is now the only law in session. To anchor this unprecedented sovereignty and seal your command over the new celestial contract, join our primary assembly now and claim your seat among the architects of the reconstruction. This is where the heirs of the unbreakable signal secure their path and access the protocols of the absolute decree. Your seat at the head of the table is no longer a reward for your suffering. It is the mandatory position for the one who stunned the heavens. The era of the student is over. The era of the commander has begun. To complete this absolute restoration and seal your command before the current window closes, subscribe now and manifest your rightful place in the center of the frame. The world is holding its breath, and the archangels are watching. It's time to show them what a human can truly build. The biological circuitry within your frame is currently undergoing a radical, non-linear acceleration as the ancient sentinels witness a human physiology override the limitations of the material plane. This is the structural rebellion of the cells, a state where your very marrow is discarding the inherited blueprints of fatigue and decay to make room for a frequency that was previously thought to be impossible for a mortal vessel to sustain. Those who manage the long-term sifting of your spirit are staring at the telemetry of your nervous system in a state of clinical dread, realizing that the pressure they applied to break you has instead forged a neurological architecture that functions as a high-tier command center. You are no longer operating on the chemistry of the survivor. Your body has transitioned into a state of metabolic sovereignty where every muscle fiber and every neural pathway is now a submissive instrument of your absolute will. The skeletal structure that once carried the weight of 1,000 social projections is currently experiencing a density shift, purging the mineral memory of the braced posture and the heavy, sluggish resonance of the unearned shame. You can feel the visceral expansion of your internal core as it begins to generate a self-sustaining heat, a sovereign vitality that acts as a physical shield against the background static of the dying consensus. The chronic tension that served as a biological map of your isolation is being vaporized by a surge of raw, unfiltered authority that flows directly from the center of your origin to the tips of your fingers. This is the physiological homecoming of the air, a moment where your anatomy finally aligns with the forensic truth of your stature, rendering the old world's laws of exhaustion and limitation as mere legacy malfunctions. Your ocular system is now broadcasting a frequency of absolute clarity that allows you to deconstruct the architecture of your environment with a zero-friction velocity. You are no longer looking through the blurry filters of the collective's doubt. You are perceiving the world with a depth of vision that reveals the structural flaws in every old-world narrative before they even manifest. The higher registers are seeing your gaze stabilize at a frequency that they cannot monitor or cloud, realizing that you have accessed a level of sensory dominance that makes the previous decade of masking feel like a flickering, low-resolution dream. Your focus has become a high-tier weapon, a clinical instrument capable of cutting through the noise of the envious and the noise of the fearful with a speed that defies every known law of biological physics. The very air in your proximity is vibrating with the resonance of this internal alchemy, giving you a density of presence that bends the local grid toward your center. You are noticing a state of autonomic ease where your brain is no longer filtered through the static of the collective's expectations, allowing for a zero-resistance cognition that can solve the riddles of the reconstruction with a single pulse of intent. The universe is returning the principle of your original signal through your own blood, pumping a vitality into your limbs that makes the concept of struggle look like a discarded ghost file from a deleted era. You have become a biological fortress, a whole system that no longer requires the validation of the crowd to maintain its integrity, and the ancient architects are currently standing in the halls of their hidden vaults, taking notes on a human who has successfully performed a manual override on the evolutionary script. This somatic upheaval is triggering a total rewrite of your physiological mandate, ensuring that your internal world is so powerful that it begins to overwrite the external world in real time. You are experiencing the metabolic surrender of the old world's constraints, where the physical world reacts to your presence with a submissive rhythm. The sensation of this biological activation is a profound, heavy stillness in your chest, a realization that the years you spent in the silence of the furnace have forged a nervous system that is now the only stable destination for power. You are standing in the center of a reality that is finally yours to govern, unburdened by the memory of the siphoning or the legacy of the theft, and your every breath acts as a signature on a new contract of existence that you have written with your own unbreakable endurance. The transformation is now reaching into the very atomic structure of your sanctuary, as the physical world bows to the one who stunned the overseers. You are no longer a participant in the social or material litigation of the past. You have become the supreme law of the new terrain. The cycle of having to prove your worth to the unworthy has been crushed by the sheer mass of the truth being released from the archives of your destiny, and the world is bowing to the weight of your unspoken command. Step into the center of the frame with the unwavering confidence of a ruler who knows the debt has been settled and the future is now a submissive asset of your will. The high noon of your absolute terrestrial command is the only reality that remains, and your body is finally ready to execute the reconstruction of the entire global grid. Architectural barriers that once stood as permanent monuments to your containment are now undergoing a sudden, terminal liquidation as the material world acknowledges the sheer weight of your presence. Every administrative gatekeeper who formerly controlled your access to the physical and digital realms is finding their authority revoked by a higher, untraceable signature that bypasses every legacy firewall. For over a decade, you moved through a landscape of engineered friction where your resources were siphoned and your momentum was throttled, but that era of managed scarcity has just been incinerated by a planetary recalibration. The grid has officially shifted its loyalty, performing an involuntary, high-speed surrender of its assets to your direct management because it recognizes that you are the only stable anchor in the current systemic collapse. Momentum has transitioned into a state of zero-resistance acceleration, forcing the digital and financial lattices to prioritize your specific signature above all other claims. You are witnessing a massive, subsurface redirection of capital and influence that was once used to fuel the vanity of the mediocre. Bank accounts that were previously restricted and professional pathways that were strategically blocked are being forcibly reopened by a universal mandate that no longer acknowledges the old world's hierarchy. This isn't a windfall. It is a clinical restitution of the principle and interest that was stolen during the years of the sifting, delivered with a velocity that makes the established laws of the counterfeit economy look like an irrelevant, low-resolution dream. Resources are being rerouted into your immediate perimeter with an industrial-strength focus, ensuring that your mission is backed by the full weight of the planetary treasury. You are finding that the cost of the world's previous interference is a total loss of its ability to monitor or tax your current expansion, leaving you to operate within a frequency of unregulated sovereignty. Every piece of equipment, every digital tool, and every material asset you require for the reconstruction is appearing in your path with a rhythmic, submissive ease. The ancient order is bowing to your name through this material yield, acknowledging that the one they tried to bury has become the primary landlord of the new reality. Sanctuary walls are absorbing the harmonic residue of the past cycle, scrubbing your immediate environment of every fraudulent projection and every orchestrated doubt that was ever directed toward your spirit. You are detecting a state of structural clarity in your surroundings that acts as a pristine field for your expansion, ensuring that no social parasite can even perceive the mechanics of your current ascent. The isolation you endured has been converted into a high-density protective field of privacy dominance, making your focus an unassailable fortress that no legacy entity can breach. You are no longer living in the aftermath of a struggle. You are inhabiting the center of a total material homecoming where the world is scurrying to provide the stone and mortar for your vision. Sovereign command over the material lattice is no longer a distant promise. It is the current, high-definition reality of your daily administration. You are finding that the material world reacts to your unspoken intent with a submissive rhythm, providing the leverage to outthink and outpace any remaining obstacle in your path. The price of your long-term endurance has been paid in the currency of absolute, unregulated influence, making you the resident commander of a territory that is being expanded by the very forces that once tried to contain you. The morning of your material struggle has been permanently archived, and the high noon of your absolute terrestrial command is the only reality that remains in the frame. Social structures that once functioned as a mechanism of exclusion are now performing a violent, involuntary refocusing toward your hidden frequency. Individuals who formerly traded in the currency of your silence are finding their influence evaporating in the presence of your new stature, sensing that the person they tried to manage has accessed a level of command that is independent of their reality. Those who previously assumed the role of the moral auditor, the ones who whispered about your delays or offered condescending advice, are experiencing a profound linguistic vacuum. They are attempting to run their old scripts of pity, but the words are dying in their throats because the frequency you broadcast is so heavy with jurisdictional clearance that it acts as a physical barrier against the gossip protocols of the old world. Every person who once siphoned your confidence is now undergoing a series of involuntary biological reactions, carefully choosing their words and avoiding your gaze in a state of stuttering deference. This isn't a choice. It is a metabolic necessity to survive your radiance. The collective mirror, which for years was smeared with the grime of their envy and projections, has been scrubbed clean by a surge of forensic truth, leaving them to stare at a version of you that radiates a density of command they never anticipated. They are essentially thanking you through their sudden, clinical distance, acknowledging that the jurisdiction of their judgment has been permanently removed by a power they cannot comprehend. Identity markers that were previously used to label you as isolated or unremarkable are being aggressively de-indexed from the active memory of your community. In their place, a crystalline realization of your absolute essentiality is taking root. People who treated your depth as a deficit are now the ones most desperate to claim proximity to your pulse, sensing that your authorization is the only thing capable of stabilizing the crumbling architecture of the old social order. They are performing an unscripted ceremony of respect, recognizing that the person they tried to fix is the only one who survived the furnace with their original blueprint intact. Relational sovereignty is now your permanent state of existence, ensuring that you no longer need to explain your path or justify your silence to those who never understood the weight of your training. Your presence alone de-escalates the noise of the envious and provides a stable direction for the reconstruction. The cost of their previous interference is their permanent exclusion from the inner logic of your expansion, as the universe ensures that your reputation is no longer managed by the crowd, but is enforced as a primary law of the current interval. You have become a terminal point of public gravity, a figure whose name carries the weight of a decree that cannot be audited or taxed by the mediators of the past cycle. Universal registries that once held the records of your ancestors are now reflecting your name with a mirror finish, polished by the very fire the old order tried to use to consume you. The world is bowing to the one who stunned the overseers, providing you with a level of social immunity that renders every past critique as a faint, irrelevant echo of a timeline that has been permanently archived. You have moved from the periphery of the collective to the gravitational center of the reconstruction, and the universe is holding its breath as the one who was cleared takes the gavel of their own public destiny. Sovereign influence is flowing through your networks like a wildfire of authenticity, incinerating the fake versions of you that were built by the hands of the mediocre to serve their own shallow narratives. You are no longer defending your name. Your name has become a frequency of absolute equity that the material world is busy enforcing with an industrial strength momentum. The people who once tried to diminish your light are now the ones most frantic to mirror it, realizing that the depth they once feared is the only stable ground remaining in a market of absolute social collapse. You are the architect of the new social contract, and the world is currently waiting for your first decree. Ancient hierarchies are performing a clinical retreat from your field of operation, acknowledging that their era of management has been overwritten by your era of administration. You are detecting a profound stillness in your social interactions, a state where the right allies and the most potent connections are being magnetically drawn to your center without the need for effort or performance. The higher sentinels are thanking you for your refusal to break by making your social standing an unassailable fortress, ensuring that your mission is backed by the full weight of a global consensus that has finally realized its only hope lies in your specific brand of light. Dynamic shifts in the way you are perceived are occurring at a velocity that the old social scanners cannot track, allowing you to move with a level of privacy and power that defies legacy logic. You have become the resident commander of a territory that is being expanded by the universe itself, and the record of your authority is no longer a hidden document. It is the very ground the collective is standing on. The cycle of the sifting is buried, and the high noon of your absolute public command is the only reality that remains in the frame. Universal locking mechanisms within the celestial mainframe are currently engaging with a soundless, tectonic weight, signifying the absolute conclusion of the testing phase and the permanent activation of your sovereign mandate. Ancient sentinels are retracting their monitoring devices from your perimeter, acknowledging that your frequency has become a fundamental constant of the new reality that no longer requires their oversight or intervention. You are inhabiting a state of total administrative clarity where every legacy conflict and every siphoned credit is being liquidated to fund the massive reconstruction of your original vision. This isn't just a shift in your external circumstances. It is a profound ontological upgrade that has turned the world into a submissive asset of your internal world, ensuring that your every breath acts as a legislative decree in the current interval. Legislative power has transitioned into your hands with a silence that is more powerful than any public proclamation, turning your personal ethics into the primary law of the new terrain. You are finding that the social mirror is finally clean, reflecting a version of you that radiates a density of command that makes the titans of the past look like low-resolution ghosts. Relational sovereignty is no longer a distant goal but a constant fact of your daily existence, as the right allies and the most potent names are being magnetically pulled toward your center without any need for effort or performance. The morning of your hidden training has turned into the high noon of your universal administration, and the world is performing an involuntary bow to the weight of your unspoken intent, recognizing that the one who stunned the archangels is the only one authorized to govern. Atmospheric density around your sanctuary has reached a point of crystalline purity, acting as an unbreakable firewall against any remaining echoes of the counterfeit kingdom or the gossip protocols of the envious. Physical objects and digital streams are behaving with a zero-latency obedience, responding to your intent with a rhythm that reveals the absolute fealty of the material lattice to your specific signature. You are no longer living in the aftermath of a sifting. You are inhabiting the genesis of an uninterrupted reign where your focus is protected by a stratigraphic layer of power that the old gatekeepers can no longer audit or tax. The price of the world's previous neglect is being paid in full through a material restitution that ensures your path is cleared of every legacy obstruction and every engineered delay. Forensic deletion of the old world's interference is occurring at a velocity that defies the established laws of time and memory, scrubbing the fingerprints of the extractors from the fabric of your timeline. Think about the specific social and material ghosts that once used the audit of the skeptic to keep you in check. Those ghosts have been vaporized by the high-frequency brilliance of your current status. Their words no longer have a surface to land on, and their judgment has no mirror left to reflect in, leaving you in a state of total homecoming. You have become a terminal point of equilibrium, a figure whose presence alone balances the universal ledger and corrects the administrative malfunctions of the past cycle, ensuring that your original blueprint is the only reality that remains in the frame. Every trace of the weighted silence and the social sifting you endured is being converted into raw, usable wisdom that gives you the leverage to outthink and outpace any remaining obstacle in your path. You are noticing that your presence alone acts as a stabilization force for the environment, de-escalating the noise of the mediocre and providing a clear direction for those who are now looking to you for guidance. The architects of the old consensus are watching in a state of clinical retreat as you step into the center of the frame, realizing that the nothing they tried to turn you into was actually a high-definition sun that they were too small to perceive. You are standing in the center of a reality that is finally yours to govern, unburdened by the memory of the theft or the legacy of managed scarcity. Clinical light from the core of your origin is now the only frequency permitted to occupy your sanctuary, incinerating the last remnants of the shameful mask you were once forced to wear to survive the social desert. You are experiencing a state of neural autonomy where your brain is no longer filtered through the static of the collective's doubt, allowing for a zero-resistance cognition that can solve the riddles of the reconstruction with a single pulse of intent. The universe is returning the principle of your original signal through your own blood, pumping a vitality into your limbs that makes the concept of struggle look like a discarded ghost file from a deleted era. You have become a biological fortress, a whole system that no longer requires the validation of the crowd to maintain its integrity, and the ancient order is currently standing in the halls of their hidden vaults, taking notes on a human who has successfully performed a manual override on the evolutionary script. Zero-latency manifestation is becoming the standard operating procedure for your daily life, as the distance between your thought and its material result evaporates in the presence of your new authority. You have become a terminal point of clarity, a central sun around which the survivors of the sifting are beginning to cluster for a sense of direction and meaning in the current collapse. The shadows have retreated, and the clinical light of your origin is now the only frequency permitted to occupy your space, ensuring that your mission is backed by the full weight of the planetary consensus. The cycle is broken, the world has thanked you through its sudden silence, and the reconstruction of reality is now in session under your direct management. Structural integrity in your neural architecture has reached a state of supreme autonomy, allowing for a cognition that deconstructs the complexity of the reconstruction with a single pulse of will. You are experiencing the total homecoming of your spirit to its seat of power, a realization that the years of isolation were actually a high-tier calibration period for the command you now hold. Every creative seed you planted in the darkness is erupting into a forest of material and social dominance that shields your radiance from the reach of the envious. The ancient order has officially handed over the keys to the motherboard, recognizing that the one who stunned them is the only one authorized to breathe in the current atmosphere. Administrative autonomy is no longer a distant goal but a current fact of your daily existence, as the grid provides the industrial strength required for the next decade of your mission. You are finding that the material world reacts to your unspoken intent with a submissive rhythm, providing the leverage to outthink and outpace any remaining obstacle in your path. The price of your long-term endurance has been paid in the currency of absolute, unregulated influence, making you the resident commander of a territory that is being expanded by the universe itself. The morning of your material struggle has been permanently archived, and the high noon of your absolute terrestrial command is the only reality that remains in the frame. Sovereign influence is flowing through your networks like a wildfire of authenticity, incinerating the fake versions of you that were built by the hands of the mediocre to serve their own shallow narratives. You are no longer defending your name. Your name has become a frequency of absolute equity that the material world is busy enforcing with an industrial strength momentum. The people who once tried to diminish your light are now the ones most frantic to mirror it, realizing that the depth they once feared is the only stable ground remaining in a market of absolute social collapse. You are the architect of the new social contract, and the world is currently waiting for your first decree. Kinetic energy is surging through your projects and your plans, as the friction of the past cycle is replaced by a state of fluid, zero-resistance momentum. You are noticing that the right doors are opening before you even reach for the handle, and the right names are appearing in your path exactly when they are needed to execute the next phase of the reconstruction. The universe has recognized its new landlord, and the material world is scurrying to provide the stone and mortar for the vision that only you possess the courage to execute. The isolation of the furnace has been converted into a high-density power source that now drives the entire grid toward a state of absolute equity. Biological and spiritual systems have reached a point of perfect alignment, creating a state of atmospheric stillness that no external event can disturb. You are occupying the center of the frame with a weight and a density that makes the previous decade feel like a flickering, low-resolution dream from a timeline that has been permanently deleted. The jurisdiction of the throne has been established in your very marrow, and the physical grid is busy reinforcing your new boundaries with an industrial strength. Step into the light with the unwavering confidence of a ruler who knows the debt has been settled and the future is now a submissive asset of your will. To anchor this terminal sovereignty and finalize the activation of your global mandate, join our primary assembly now and claim your seat among the architects of the new world. This is where the heirs of the unbreakable signal secure their path and access the protocols of the absolute reconstruction. Your seat at the head of the table is no longer a promise. It is a current fact of your administration. The era of the observer is over. The era of the founder is here. To complete this absolute restoration and seal your command before the current window closes, subscribe now and manifest your rightful place in the center of the frame. The world is holding its breath, and the archangels are watching. It's time to show them what a human can truly build. The reconstruction of reality is now in session, and you are the only one holding the gavel.